Hello?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Am
Okay,
I coming through well?
you are coming through immaculately. I don't know which microphone you have, but it's very impressive.
Yield Blue Yeti.
Oh, never mind. Well, hello. Thank you for deciding to come on such short notice. Yeah, I knew that you had already spoken to Dylan a little while ago to talk about the whole Vaush video, and I thought I would shoot my shot, and I guess I shot it well. Um, would you like to
Yeah,
introduce yourself to my lovely little chatters?
sure. So I used to go by DoomerPolitics, now I'm DoomerMedia. I made the Vaush's Evil video that was very controversial about a month ago. I just made a video on Dave Chappelle that has been far more controversial, apparently, as I've been deeply ratioed by my subscribers. And yeah, I
Oh.
don't know. Be making probably mostly videos about movies going forward, but yeah.
Do you have any theories as to why this one has gotten a lot more heat than a video of you saying that Vaush is actually an evil human?
I mean, a lot of it has to do with my subscribers. Like, probably a third of my subscribers came from Sargon, so that doesn't help.
Yep.
Releasing a video on what is apparently a very issue that is near and dear to their heart, apparently, uh, in the opposite direction as to what they would prefer. I mean, I don't know why people care about this so much. To be honest with you, I get the impression that the majority of the people in my comment section just didn't watch my video or didn't process it. They're responding to things I clearly didn't say. I mean, it just a lot of it seems like motivated reasoning. It's like, well, Dave Chappelle has to be 100% right. He can't have done anything wrong. So if you're saying he did something wrong, well, then you're Hitler. And I don't know. I mean, it's something like that.
Yeah, I mean, especially we don't realize it, I guess, as Twitch streamers, because we feel like we have our own little army, or like, I guess, yeah, internet political people, we feel like we have our own little army, but our little army is absolutely nothing in comparison to like real celebrities. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, no, there's way more people that care about Dave Chappelle than care about me, the Vosh is evil guy.
Yeah. It's partially that. People also seem to be really, really touchy about this because, like, one of the things that's funny is I don't know if you watched the video, but one of the first things I say is like, I'm not suggesting that he should be canceled or anything like that.
Mhm.
And it's like a fourth to a third of my comments are like, he shouldn't be canceled. And it's like, yeah, I said that. I don't know why you're saying that to me. Like, did you watch? It's only 7 minutes. Like, did you watch it? I don't know.
Yeah, I
I
think,
don't get it.
well, it's actually impressive because, as you said, it's like within the first minute. So it's interesting to see someone like basically tell you exactly what you already put in the video when it's literally like in the first few seconds of the video, it's like they almost just came and saw the title and were like, yo, I'm about to end this man's whole career.
Yeah, I mean, I think people like both with the Vaush video and with this video. I get the impression that a lot of people, maybe more than half, basically make up their mind about your video before they even click it. They just like see the title. Like that was the biggest thing with the Vaush thing is everyone's getting so mad about the title. It's like, I mean, the function of the title is to get people to click on the video. You try to summarize your thesis in a way that's like provocative and interesting and summarize the contents of a 2 hour video or whatever to get people to actually engage with it. I would think that the title is pretty irrelevant compared to the actual content of the video. I probably spend half the time arguing about the title. I think it's the same thing here. People just see the title and they like already know their reaction, and it doesn't matter what I say in the video because, I mean, my perspective was I was trying to be as kid gloves as I possibly could. It's like, okay, conservatives, you don't think this is a problem. I'm going to try and very gently work you through why this might be a little bit of a problem, right? And I was tried so hard to not say anything, that would give off the wrong impression about certain things, but that does not seem to have worked. So
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I found it really adorable that the video was like only like 7 minutes and change long because last night we watched it on my stream and I think it took us like um something like 5 hours
Are
to
you
go
freaking
through.
kidding me?
Like, yeah, I think we were watching it for like 4 to 5 hours, just and then like we kept on starting, stopping, arguing. Yeah, I was streaming for like 9 hours yesterday, and majority of it was just us talking about the whole Dave Chappelle thing. Yeah, so I don't know. the fact that it wasn't like double the length of Vaush is Evil, I thought like the conservatives would be like, I guess he good guy, but never mind. Uh,
No,
so
I said something they don't like, so fuck me, I guess.
yeah. So quick question. Do you use camera or no?
No, I don't even own a webcam,
Oh, okay.
unfortunately.
Okay, no problem. I'm just gonna still share my camera with you just so that you know like what I'm doing, because a lot of times I make faces or something, and I just want you to, I don't know, get the full scope of the cat experience or whatever.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, I had a couple of questions for you, and I know that there's probably people in chat that will also have questions for you as well. So I'm just gonna go through the ones that I wrote down. I'll probably end up having like more ones as we go through, but yeah. So you said that you don't feel like they're morally obligated to take this down. Could you elaborate further on why you don't think they're morally obligated, or is that you saying that they're not morally obligated, and you wouldn't want them to take it down, or would you want them to take it down, but they're not morally obligated to kowtow to you? Yeah.
So I mean, there's a line that a comedian could cross. You know, if someone gets up on stage and starts like giving out people's social security numbers or inciting violence and stuff like that, it's a very easy, like, yeah, like deplatform that immediately. But if it's just a comedian that's telling, making what I perceive to be mean and insensitive comments, it doesn't meet the threshold for me of like, this needs to be forcefully deplatformed. Like my video is basically just saying this is entering into a realm that I think is like could affect people in the real world, and we should discourage this. But in terms of like actually forcefully, taking something down, I guess I have a pretty high threshold for that. I'm not generally comfortable with that. In terms of like just sort of a moral thing, it's like, what is Netflix's responsibility as a platform? I mean, I would have to think about that. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think, I'm sure that there are worse things that have been platformed than this. Like my basic take, my take's probably a little bit stronger than what I give in the video. Like I think a lot of things that he said are like legitimately transphobic and pretty gross. But I don't know, like moral obligation to take it down. I think it's better to just have people push back and be like, hey, that was a dick thing to do. You shouldn't have done that. And like that's partially reflected in the fact that people don't seem to like this nearly as much as his other specials. I mean, I went back and I had already seen all of his stuff because that's what's so funny. Everybody, you don't get comedy. I love stand-up comedy. I'd already seen all of his stuff. I went back and rewatched all of it. And it's like obvious that this is considerably less funny than a lot of his other stuff. So yeah, I guess I just generally don't think that it's necessary to take things down like forcefully. And I don't know exactly where I would draw the line there. It's also kind of weird to like, assign moral obligation to a corporation because they're not moral entities. It's like they're just trying to maximize income for their stockholders or whatever. So
yeah. But let's say if a Rihanna had a contract with Columbia Records or whatever, and rather than making music, she decided to just read spoken poetry for like an hour and a half. Like, would the company, if they were to release it and people were like, what the fuck, this isn't what I wanted, wouldn't they I guess not have kind of have a moral obligation to like say, okay, this isn't what anybody wanted. This is not really even like the thing that you guys typically want, which is music. And instead, this is spoken poetry. Because it like for this didn't feel as much like a comedy special, but a rant.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's for the record for your chat. This actually happens a lot with comedians. If you watch George Carlin's older stuff, in particular his last 2 or 3 specials, I mean, there's like 10 to 15, 20-minute segments where it's not even comedy. He's just ranting. So, I mean, it sort of makes sense to me that Dave would go in this direction like a lot of people do. I think something similar with Pryor and some other people. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's largely, I mean, that's kind of like a marketing thing that should sort of sort itself out. Things need to be properly advertised. And that sort of gets into like, is it, unethical to, clickbait people on YouTube is basically the same question. And I think, yeah, it's probably wrong. But again, it's like, it's not that wrong, right? Maybe it's a moral wrong, but it's not a severe thing that I would care all that much about, right? And yeah, I don't know. I mean, if Rihanna was like, I'm gonna have, she like put something out and it was advertised as being an album, and it's just her doing spoken word poetry. I mean, like, first of all, I think the word would get out immediately. A lot of, probably half the people who consumed it would know that it's Rihanna doing spoken word poetry. But yeah, I mean, it's probably a little bit wrong, but I don't think it's like severely wrong, I guess.
Okay. And just as a heads up, I'm keeping a log of a couple of questions that people are asking for you, so I'll just ask them like when we get to that. Yeah, I haven't looked at all of his old specials recently, but you said that you went through. And from
Yeah.
what I remember, I was talking about this with quite a few of my friends, even when it like those other ones came out, and I was just like, this is weird. Like, why is there so much like queer-based jokes in here? But not like jokes as much as it's like just kind of, yeah, he said things about trans people for a while. So do
You mean in this special?
No, for like the last couple of years, like since those like the 2017 ones came out, I just remember there being like jokes related to trans people, or comments about trans people, or comments about queer people for a while.
Yeah, it was way shorter previously though. Like in most of the specials, it was like there was less than 5 minutes of talking about trans people.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was one special that had like maybe 8 to 10 minutes ish, but it was nowhere like this was half the special. Like this was a solid 30 minutes of talking about trans people. It hasn't been anywhere close to this previously.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, the amount is definitely it's a very large percentage of the special. But I mean, would you not say that, like, for anyone that has been watching the content for a while, even if it was shorter, this should have been something that is generally expected from Dave Chappelle? Like, why? Like, I've kind of had the opinion of, like, what a surprise, Dave Chappelle did this. I've literally been talking about this for years. Do you not feel like this is almost this should have been kind of obvious, I guess?
I didn't expect it, but having gone back and rewatched the specials, I mean, it's probably because I had forgotten some of the things that he said.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are like I include this in the video. I mean, there are some pretty gross comments about trans people in some of those specials, but some of them are mixed. Like I guess I don't need to like go into examples, but like there was one example he gave about like dancing with a trans woman in a nightclub, and it's like the bit is about a minute long, and there's like 2 comments in there that are like pretty clearly transphobic, but then there's also 2 comments that seem to be embracing trans people, and it's kind of like a mix. And then he doesn't linger on it, so he just like this is like this one thing, and then he moves on. So I guess I just didn't really pay much attention to it. It's in the broader context of him talking about other things for 20-30 minutes. You have one bit about this and then move on. It just wasn't something that really clocked my radar. The one that was particularly bad was the Caitlyn Jenner comment. Was pretty gross. But what's really weird is that in the same special that he made, like the
Caitlyn Jenner one from this special, or was there another one?
No, previously. So I don't even know if I can say it on your stream, so I'm not going to. But the clip that I showed from Equanimity about him basically saying he read a letter from a trans fan who seemed devastated, and then he was like, I don't even know what joke pissed them off so much, but I think it's this joke I'm about to tell you right now. After that, in Equanimity, which I believe is about 20 minutes in, he tells a joke about Caitlyn Jenner that's pretty gross. Like, that's probably, in my opinion, the worst comment that he had made about trans people until this special. And yeah, I guess I just didn't really remember those comments, because going back, I mean, they're pretty bad. But it didn't sink in as much to me because it's nested in between, talking about O.J. Simpson and Bill Cosby and whatever for the rest of the special.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so I guess it's even obviously it's been a couple of years, so yeah, you didn't remember. And is it poor taste of me to assume that you're cis het?
I'm cishet, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I guess for like my group of friends, since we're all queer, we like really pick up on things quite often. But I can see how like a lot of times there might be things that I could miss too, because it just wasn't something that I was paying a lot of attention to. So yeah. Well, it's nice to see that like you went back. Do you feel like after putting things in context, that this could have been something that could have been predicted after like going back? Like, are you like, oh, okay, like this isn't even super surprising because like Chappelle's been like hinting at this for a while, or was this like really like particularly
well,
a
it's
thing?
it's confusing. Like something that one of the comments that I found really weird in the reaction to the video was people were saying that the message of the closer was really clear. It's not clear at all to me what he actually thinks. Like I genuinely have no idea what, like, I don't think he understands the distinction between sex and gender. I don't know that he really understands anything about these topics. I can't tell what he actually feels about trans people, or like I don't know what his positions are. So and this is after he, you know, spent 30 minutes ranting about it. So like it predicted precisely, I don't think so. I mean, even now I don't really know what the dude thinks about these things. It's very unclear to me because on the one hand he has these comments, you know, he'll like defend JK Rowling and say I'm on team turf and stuff like that. But then there's other comments from him that don't seem like things that a turf would say. And you kind of have to wonder, it's like, does he even know what a turf is? I mean, he like Googled it once, but does he understand like the context behind these words that he's saying? I really don't know. It's very hard for me to tell what he actually thinks about these things. It's pretty obvious he's saying things that are unacceptable, but does he realize they're unacceptable? Does he really understand the way people are going to take these comments? I'm very unsure. So I honestly, I don't think so. I mean, he said some things that were pretty offensive. I think that you could have predicted that he would have said more things that were offensive, given that he made several of these comments previously. But predicted precisely, not really. I mean, even now, I have no idea what the dude thinks.
Okay, so I mean, it's, I guess, I kind of see it from the perspective of like it's in poor taste to even be ignorant about the topic, because I could see that perhaps, yeah, it is ignorance, but if you're going to go and make a rant in such a public forum, then maybe we should get you know, like a full education on it prior to saying I'm gonna make $60 million off of
no, I 100% agree. A lot of people were giving this defense of like I just said all that is like, I'm confused as to what he thinks. People were using that as a defense. They were like, well, he doesn't even know what a turf is, so these comments aren't hateful. And I'm like, listen, if I'm doing more research for like YouTube videos than he's doing to go put on a comedy special where he's being paid $50 million, like, then he's fucking up. Like, I don't understand. Like, there has to be some level of responsibility. You can't just go onto a platform. Like, he's one of the most successful entertainers in the country. I mean, you have to have a level of responsibility to know what the fuck you're talking about. And I just don't buy that defense at all. Like, when people give that defense, that just seems like massive cope to me. You know, it's like I have to spend 2 months researching a fucking video about an internet cringe lord that I didn't think anyone was going to watch, and he's going to go up and, you know, I mean, he's legitimately being paid enough money to like feed in a house 50 people for the rest of their life to go do this one thing, and he can't be bothered to open Wikipedia. Like, it's so absurd. That's like, yeah, ignorance is not a defense of anything. He's clearly very ignorant on these topics, and that's not acceptable at all for the platform in which he's discussing these things.
Yeah. And I don't think a public stage of this size is really the best place to sit there and say, can I please help me learn? Or like, I'm going to say things that are wrong, and yeah, come correct me, I guess, later. I think.
Yeah, I mean, like,
sorry.
There's a joke I used to make about like people who make movies but they don't research the subject they're making it on. It was like, you can pay a graduate student $20 in a sandwich and they'll make your movie not stupid. This isn't hard. Like, there are people who know the things that you want to know. Like, for example, for the Vaush video, I emailed 4 philosophy professors and 2 of them responded. I sit there and have a conversation with them and ask them questions so I don't present their ideas ignorantly. It's not hard to do. It's a very easy thing to do. and I'm just some random person. You know, he's Dave Chappelle. He could get this information from anybody on the planet. If he doesn't do that, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's beyond ignorant. I mean, it's irresponsible. The level of ignorance on display is really quite telling for me. And I'm kind of shocked that people use this as a defense. It's like, well, maybe he doesn't understand these things. It's like, well, if you don't understand these things, maybe you don't get up on a, you know, talk to 20 million people about it. Like, I don't know. It really annoys me.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not something that I guess any other group of people that would be excused for. Like if someone came on and started saying, well, I don't know, I've heard about phrenology. Maybe this doesn't make sense. Like black people did have seemed kind of strange. I don't know. I'm not sure if they're all that smart. And afterwards people like were like, oh, well, maybe he doesn't know any black people. I'm like, then don't put that out.
Don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Don't get on your $50 million comedy special and talk about it. Maybe until you've done a little bit of Googling.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I've ever seen ignorance be done in a way that I think was okay was like Jojo Rabbit when like Taika Waititi.
I think it's Taika Waititi, but I don't know.
Yeah, and like they're just like, I didn't look up Hitler. I have no idea what they're like because why would I look up this person? I like the whole point is to make him look as stupid as humanly possible, and that was done artfully. But yeah, everything else in between, it's like we didn't excuse Sia just because she's trying to make a very nice movie about autistic people. It was done wrong. And like you can be criticized for you doing it wrong.
This like literally the exact same people are saying it's fine that Dave Chappelle didn't Google these things. The same people are in my fucking comment section telling me I don't research YouTube videos enough. It's like, okay, well, I mean, like, what is your standard, honestly? I mean, if you're holding me to the standard where, because like it's really funny. One of the most common comments on the Vaush videos, I didn't do enough research, and it's like incredibly well researched, right? And people are still they're like demanding more and more. Okay, well, if I have that standard for a YouTube video, what's the standard for, you know, putting on this enormous special that you know everybody's going to watch? Like it should be a pretty high standard, right? I mean, it's just inconsistent. If people don't like you, then you always need to do more work. And if people like you, then anything can be excused is basically what's going on. But I think if people want to be consistent, you know, it's clearly wrong and or stupid to go on a platform this big and say things where, I mean, legitimately, I don't know that you've Googled it, right? Like that's just embarrassing.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to do too much of like a lefty circle jerk. But yeah, overall, like I agree with you. I guess my next question for you would be why I guess when we were watching the video, we know so much of the backlash has come from the comments about trans people. But we were also watching, you know, all the parts that had to do with LGBTQ community, and there was a lot of comments as well about gay people. And I feel like overall this has been something that a lot of people, I guess, kind of brushed under the rug. There was a bit of a discourse I heard about, you know, the baby, but it mostly turned into a turf related conversation. And this was also something that you focused on in your video, was more of a trans related situation. Is there a reason why you think, well, I guess even for yourself, why did you focus more on the trans perspective rather than the other perspectives that were there as well?
I mean, because of the level of like perceived harm. So like I think that most trans people are going to be pretty sensitive to like misgendering and particularly performative cruelty. Like the comments about like making fun of how trans women appear, that just seems like it's going to be taken really, really poorly by like probably almost all trans people, or just people that are, you know someone who is trans and understand how those comments are going to be taken. So I mean, like you could draw a comparison. It's like, well, why is it so bad to say the N-word, but you know, saying cracker is fine, no one cares? Well, it's like because of the perceived reaction. If you say the N-word to a black person, you can reasonably expect there's going to be a very, very bad reaction, right? And it's like, okay, well, if you're going to say something that's is going to have a really bad reaction, maybe that's a shitty thing to say. Maybe don't say that, right? It's because of the reaction that you can expect. If you say cracker to a white person, well, I mean, in my experience, no one cares. It doesn't have much of a reaction at all. So like the comment, like he made comments about gay people that are in poor taste, but I don't think that it would have the effect as like, you know, the comment that I highlighted about, I mean, that I consider to be like performative cruelty against the trans woman that he was shown a picture of. I think that that would have a much stronger reaction than the comments he made about gay people. At least personally, that's my perception of how the things would be taken.
Yeah, I guess for myself, I saw it more of though within our everyday ether, gay people are a lot more accepted within the country than trans people. I also don't think it's a completely unmarginalized group. I think a lot of us live maybe in areas where there's not too much of an issue with you coming out as gay, being gay, but there's still like a lot of anti-gay sentiment even within the US, even within Canada, and across different parts of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. But like, what was the worst gay comment that he made? Because like, I mean, he's made trans comments that I view as being fine. Like, I don't think that joking about trans people is off limits necessarily. It's just that some of these jokes specifically are just like really mean. You know, like you could make a joke about gay people that gay people would laugh at and nobody would take offense to, and then you could make jokes about gay people that are like really offensive, right? So like, I don't know, like what was the worst comment that he made about gay people?
Yeah, so he really leaned into the flamboyant gay man like stereotype. There was the situation of like, oh, the baby got canceled for this, but nobody got canceled for saying comments about gay people, but no one cared that he like killed somebody. He basically called he was with the person that he was about to get in a fight with at a restaurant. He was like, oh, and this is a problem I have with you guys. You know, you're a minority until suddenly you're not. Which like was really kind of setting up that us versus them dichotomy, and always like I don't know, there's this general issue I noticed throughout the special of like a lack of recognition of the fact that there are gay black people, gay like black trans people,
Yeah,
black
that's true.
anything.
He was
Yeah.
definitely doing the oppression Olympics thing where he was, yeah, I definitely noticed that. I guess I didn't notice it as much that he was doing it with gay people specifically. Now that you mention it, yeah, you're right. None of those comments specifically I found to be as offensive as like the stuff that I highlighted. And what's interesting is that I didn't even include some of the worst comments about trans people because like part of what I was trying to do was avoid triggering conservatives, and like so like that's why I didn't mention turfs, for example, because then I would have to like explain what a turf is, and it's just like impossible to like I think explain that to somebody, the kind of person who wouldn't understand why there was a problem. I don't think there's any getting through to them about what a turf is or even going down that road. That's why I was just trying to explain. It's like these comments are obviously on their face cruel, which was something that I thought people would be able to understand. Well, I was mistaken. Um, but yeah, you're right. I mean, those comments are offensive. I guess I would just say that the trans comments I see as being more offensive. But yeah, I mean, those comments also are kind of fucked up.
Well, I'm thinking, do you feel like that whole idea of I need to make sure that I'm saying things that everybody can understand might be putting a little bit of a limit on your creative freedom? Like, if you were thinking about the whole turf situation, and perhaps it would have been something that you would have liked to dive into, do you not think that you should have had the creative liberty to do so, like rather than thinking about how is this going to be received by all parties? Maybe it would have been better to think about like what would I like to release into the world, because even though you think, okay, like some people might not get that this is wrong, there might still be people out there that just a video where you explain more as to why it's wrong and explain the difference between sex and gender. There are some people that like willfully don't understand, but there are always some people that don't understand because they've never been told to understand. So, you know, they watch the special, they say sex and gender's real. Who's saying that gender isn't real? And at the same time, there's always I guess it always, for us, because we are online, it seems, or like because we are young, it seems like everybody that we know understands. But like even for myself, like I learned something new about like transness like all the time. When I first met somebody that was non-binary, I was like, why are they calling themselves trans? Like, or you're non-binary, like, do you need to also say you're trans? Is this like an oppression Olympics thing? But then I was explained that, and then I understood. I used to be a little bit more of like a gender critical type, where I was like, I don't understand why so many people that are trans need to like wear makeup so much and wear like such girly outfits. Doesn't this just kind of make us like look really frilly? Like, do we really need more frilly looking women? And then now I understand more like as to why do people do that. So I think overall, just because there's people out there that are like, I don't understand, you guys are all stupid. It might just be because no one sat there and explained calmly to them. Because like after just having, Contra explain it in a video, I was like, I get it. Cool. Thank you. Having,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
It just depends on what the goal of the video is. Like the goal of the Vaush video was to try and get through to people who are Vaush fans. So like there were things I had to try and avoid in that video. That's why I didn't talk about any of the pedophilia or CP stuff, because if somebody is a fan of Vaush and you mention that, their brain's just going to shut off. So I just wouldn't mention that, because the goal of the video was to try and get through to people who like him and say, hey, there's actually some problems with this dude. And it's the same thing here. It's like, okay, well, there's all these people that don't see any problem whatsoever with this special. Well, my goal is to try and explain to them why it is that people have a problem with it, right? I would say I was a lot more successful in the Vaush video than this one, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, that was just the goal. It's like, I guess I was assuming I was a bit more optimistic than I should have been as to how receptive these people would be to a calm explanation of why there might be an issue here. They don't seem to be very open to these ideas in retrospect. But yeah, I mean, that was just the goal, is, well, let's try and put these things in the way that I think would be most palatable to these people, which, just to put it bluntly, it seems like nothing would be palatable. So it's probably a waste of time, but lesson learned.
Okay. Well, I guess I saw your tweet about, okay, fuck it, I'm not doing politics anymore. But like, I think it might just be partially just due to the current audience that you have. But I mean, I would never say that you should shy away from like a topic in which you want to do. Like, just because people are into comments saying XYZ, if you have ideas about things, then you should be putting out the content about those. Like,
that's the thing, is I don't even like politics that much.
Oh, okay, then never mind. I mean,
I'm more interested in other stuff.
Okay, you're a fraud. Yeah. Your name was always a lie. I am canceling you. No, okay, yeah, that's not a problem. So I just want to know, what was your thoughts on the ending comment of you guys need to stop punching down on my people?
This is an incredibly fucking stupid comment. I mean, like, the people who are defending Dave don't seem to understand what he was getting at. So my perception of what he was getting at was a call for empathy. Hey, empathy is a two-way road. And what he actually means by that is, you need to empathize with me. I'm not going to bother empathizing with you. You guys have been telling me what's fucked up about my jokes for 4 years, but I'm not going to change any of that shit. So what needs to happen is, you need to just accept what I'm going to say, which is really fucked up to present as a call for empathy. Oh, empathy is a two-way road. But what he's actually saying is just like, you just need to accept what I'm going to say. And then he says, stop punching down on my people, which is basically implying that like the trans community has more power than him and other comedians and people in entertainment, which is just like ridiculous. I mean, I don't think I need to explain to you why that's completely, the entire thing is just insane. Again, if I was making this argument to someone that actually knew what these things meant, that might have been my strongest argument. Is like this absolute stupidity of that final statement is just unbelievable. Yeah, I don't know. I hate it.
Yeah, I also was not a big fan of that as a final comment as well. But I do know in general there's There's a weird disdain within our community, the Black community, against like LGBTQ people. With some of the comments that were made overall, like, why is your progress moving so much faster than our progress? And I guess, yeah, like, why is there so much queer stuff happening nowadays? I don't like it. I think it's really strange that people are doing that, especially because not everybody is moving at the same pace within the LGBTQ community. So
There's also just obvious answers to that is shocking he doesn't understand. It's like, I mean, obviously there are problems for Black people, but in terms of like the legal structure, a lot of these issues were sorted out in like the 60s and 70s, whereas gay people were legally discriminated against until what, 6 years ago? Like, obviously, if there are still like if the law is still saying fuck gay people, then there's social justice movements going on, then there's very immediate gains to be made for gay people that don't exist for Black people, because that part of it at least was sorted out earlier. So of course, the people that have more like the people that are currently facing more legal barriers have more to gain in terms of a social justice movement. So of course, in the short term, they're going to see more gains because there's more that they need to get done. It just seems like the most obvious thing. Like, I mean, it goes beyond just gay people not being able to get married. I mean, there were considerable. As far as I understand, I might be wrong because I obviously don't know much about the law, but I'm pretty sure that for a long time, like up until like 2010, in a lot of states, people could just say, "I'm firing you because you're gay," and there was like no recourse. Like, I could just do that. That's completely insane. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't understand his comparison of these things. I don't know why it needs to be a competition. It just seems really weird to me. But yeah, whatever.
yeah, and it doesn't need to be a competition at all. And I think a lot of the conversation where we're turning it into a competition is why it is a competition, because rather than spending time in trying to do things in solidarity or working together, it always has to be like grumble fest, where like I'm just mad that these people are getting rights, whereas we're not. And it's like, well, if we all like work together and just like merge our efforts for fighting for different types of rights, but as a coalition, we'd be able to get a lot more done overall. Whereas if you sit there and just say, I'm mad that, XYZ is getting their things faster, well, you're not going to get anything because they're working and you're not. And like, yeah, let's just mix things together. It's not that crazy, but
Yeah.
yeah. I have one question from the audience that I took down earlier, but I'll see whether or not anybody else has anything else that comes up. But otherwise, the one question I had got was, does Doomer think it's inconsistent of Netflix to take down Community episodes where Chang is dressed like a dro? Like, there's an episode of him in blackface.
Oh yeah, the dark elf thing.
Yeah, but not take down Chappelle's special. And this
It seems obviously inconsistent. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's not even like. I mean, yeah, that's so much less of a big deal. That somebody dressed up as an elf and it kind of looks like black. Yeah, that's obviously inconsistent.
Well, yeah, there was also like the whole section where he literally said, people are like, is this blackface? And he's like, no, I'm an elf. And they're like, okay. Like, it's not an episode of which like it wasn't even mentioned, but yeah, I was complaining a lot about that episode yesterday because it was one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's the difference between like it's showing something that could be offensive and then putting it in context versus Dave's special, which is like making offensive comments that are nested within 10-minute long rants that affirm exactly the offensive connotation of what he would be saying. That makes it a lot different, right?
Yeah. Now I'm just asking if anybody else has any questions. But otherwise, I mean, I'm a black person. Do you have any questions for me in relation to this, or a black queer person?
I mean, yeah, like what did you disagree with anything in the video? Like, is there something you think I really should have mentioned or anything like that?
I just kind of felt like the baby gloves ness of the video. I'm sure that there could be a lot more that you could have said, but I'm not in disagreement about anything that he did put in. I think the one thing I did make a little bit of a complaint about was the basis of which you believe that he shouldn't have told the joke that someone has said that it devastated him over. Sorry, someone came up to Dave and said, your joke has devastated me. And then Dave was like, okay, and I'm going to tell it now. So I think when it comes to this, if he continues to make more content exactly like this, there's no way that there hasn't been people that have been trying to educate him to say, like, this special that you just put out, it was awful. There's so many people talking about it. But at that point, it might have just been on tour. It probably wasn't public anywhere. So having a single person come up to you and say, I don't like your joke, as a comedian, is probably such a frequent occurrence that it might have been fair to say that, yeah, I'm gonna tell the joke, because there's always like, you're going to city to city to city to city to city. At least one person's going to hate something that you say. Quite often, during, Bill Burr specials, when he starts saying things about women, people will leave the audience. But overall, most people are like, I know he's kidding. I'm not offended. He might be going a little bit hard, but, I believe his heart's at the right place. So majority of people don't really like get on Bill Burr about like all the woman hating or like whiny woman jokes that he makes. So I guess I was just thinking that if he was getting like every single show he was going to, people were like, this is crazy. Like, you need to stop making this joke. This is so harmful. Then I would have been like, yeah, I think he's getting enough like reoccurrent feedback about this, and people are continuously saying that it's really harmful. So please don't make this joke anymore, and he should have learned. But with like a singular person saying that it was really, really offensive, I don't think that's enough basis that somebody should have removed it. I mean, I don't recall what the joke was. So, and you didn't put it in the special. I guess you said that it was pretty awful. What the joke was.
Yeah, he he misgendered Caitlyn Jenner while describing her posing nude in Sports Illustrated, I think was the context of that. There's a comment that I don't know if I can say on your stream. But yeah, so the purpose of me putting that in, it wasn't just about that one comment. It was just like, I needed an example of showing that there was a history of this. So what I could have done instead was show a montage, because actually in almost every special he's complaining about negative feedback he's gotten from trans people. It's like almost every special. In fact, when you go back and look at him making comments about trans people, that usually starts with him complaining about someone, like him bitching about someone bitching about his jokes. It's like it happens over and over and over again. And then this is without bringing into context all the news articles and stuff of, him catching shit for trans. I mean, this has been going on. It's a very, very persistent thing. So the reason that I chose to show it that way wasn't because that one person is particularly important. It was just because, he devoted a minute and a half to 2 minutes of his comedy special to talking about this person who had given him feedback and admitting that it made him feel bad, that it made other people feel bad. And that sort of reinforced my premise of like, hey, if jokes are making people upset, even Dave agrees that, that's a shitty thing to do. So that was kind of the point there. It wasn't to try and say this is the only time it's happened. It could be that it would be better to have presented that with more examples, because I could have just had like a quick montage or intercut of all the different times that he's done that on stage, because it's not just once. I think it happens 4 or 5 times.
Okay, so yeah. I think that would have definitely been a lot more impactful then, because I guess as I haven't rewatched it, I just remember hearing things that I didn't like. But yeah, just hearing like, oh, one person said something. I'm like, is that really like enough for him to really get the hint that like what he's saying is harmful? But
Yeah,
yeah,
you're right. I could have also had like a montage of the 50 news articles. I mean, I think literally 50 probably have been written about negative feedback to his comments.
Okay, then yeah, that would have been hopeful overall. I guess unlike your Vaush video, we, the one thing that you had said that you wanted, or the one thing that you had done with your Vaush video is change the title. But if I think title wise, nobody is upset here. But you can't really change the video at all because it's uploaded. You can't really add new content as far as I'm aware. So I guess now retrospectively, with your day and change of feedback that you've been getting, what would you say that you would have maybe wanted to change?
I mean, the main thing is just not making it, so it's a waste of time. It clearly, like, I don't think my goal was accomplishable. Like, knowing that this was the response, I don't think that any video I could have made would have had the desired impact. I just don't think that the people I'm trying to talk to are open. I don't think they're receptive to the idea at all. So, I mean, I just wouldn't have made it. In terms of how I present my arguments, like, it's hard to say because the feedback has been, like, for the most part, so dumb. I just don't even know how to process a lot of it. Like, I mean, we could just go through, like, one of the things I said is I tried to present the example of my friend who was fat, and like I wouldn't make fat jokes, and then he lost weight, and it's like, okay, well now he's in on the joke, so it's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got a lot of pushback on that, but they didn't seem to understand even why I said it. It's like I said it to try and establish that it's hard to find the line in edgy humor between what's acceptable and what isn't. So try and imagine somebody that would be sensitive to the joke you're telling, and if they would appreciate it, then it's probably fine. Is like what I was trying to say. So maybe I should have said that a little bit more clearly, but I don't think people were really receptive to the idea. And like we just talked about, obviously that the segment with him reading the letter, I probably could have presented that better. I mean, there's a lot of things I could have done a little bit better, but overall, I just wouldn't have made it because it seems to have largely been a waste of time.
I wouldn't go as far as to say that. Now, keep in mind, unfortunately, the internet works in a very particular way. And that way is people love writing about things when they don't like it, but don't necessarily do the same if they love it. I think that it's very possible that people that watched it didn't have any form of problems with it. Maybe it was helpful. So just because you're getting like a lot of types of negative feedback doesn't mean that it was an absolute waste of your time. I think even if we did a little poll here in my server to see if people liked your video or not, you would get a majority of people saying yes. So I don't think, I think you're getting a little bit of, not a confirmation bias, but I guess a little bit of the cancellation feel where like when you're in the middle of something and you feel like everybody's against you for some reason, your eyes kind of glaze over the positive comments and you see the negative comments and feel the negative comments a lot more. Also, may I say Twitter and YouTube is not exactly the place for discourse. So you had a lot of conversations with people following the Vaush's Unironically Evil video, yeah?
Yeah, those conversations were a lot more productive than the conversations about this video have been.
No, but you had conversations that were like actual calls and stuff, yeah? And like, the feedback and conversations that you had as a result of those calls were probably exponentially better than anything that you were just reading in the comments. And I mean,
generally, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm your first of calls, or if you've already been going on like a call train, but I would definitely say like wait for you to finish having conversations with people that may have disagreed, because it's not gonna just be like, God, you're so fucking stupid, holy shit, you dumb, you know.
Well, yeah, so like sort of I think the difference with this is that, and yeah, you are the first person I've talked to about this, by the way.
Wow.
Like the first, I guess, streamer or whatever,
hey,
content creator. But I think the difference with this is that there's just sort of this impenetrable values difference. So a lot of the people that are like against the video I legitimately don't think there's anything I could say to change their mind. They just have this like really hard stance that like comedians can say anything and period. Like that's it. Comedians can say anything. And there's just sort of no penetrating the like there's no penetrating the belief. And for the record, I don't think it's consistent. Like for example, if I asked these people, who was it that like had the like cut off Trump's head and like made the jokes about decapitating Trump? I forget exactly who that was. But I'm guessing that if I asked a lot of these people, or not if I asked them, if I checked their Twitter timeline and saw how they reacted to that, I'm guessing they would have had a very different stance about the free marketplace of ideas when it comes to comedy. So it's probably just a lot of hypocrisy from these people. I'm sure that they did not take kindly to seeing Trump decapitated.
Yeah.
And they're, oh, but Chappelle can say anything. Yeah. So I don't know.
I am of the belief that he can say anything, but should he have a platform to say everything is different. He can sit there in his house with a megaphone saying, impossible burger, impossible burger, impossible burger all day, but like, do we need to pay him for that? I don't think so.
Yeah, and that's so funny. I didn't even call for him to be deplatformed. I just said he was mean. Everyone lost their mind.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's so the part I love is that you literally started it off by saying, no, that's not. I don't want it to be deplatformed. One person had a question that was Chappelle was empathetic to trans people. Why is DoomerPolitics evil? Please ask. So, do I think he's sympathetic to trans people? So like empathetic.
Probably he's probably empathetic to some degree. It's just I don't think he understands any of this shit. So like I don't think like if I had to guess, and I really don't like speculating people's intentions because how can you know? If I had to guess, I would say that Chappelle wants the best for everybody and doesn't wish any ill on trans people. I am guessing that he probably finds trans people, generally speaking, to be off-putting in some regard. Otherwise, a lot of his comments just don't make sense. Why would he make these comments if he doesn't feel that way? But it's really hard to know because, like I said, there's like all these mixed comments that don't agree with one another. It's like it was really funny. I had a thread in Our Destiny that I deleted because people were just being so ridiculous, but they kept arguing like, oh no, he was really definitely trying to have a trans inclusive special. It's so clear. And it's like, oh yeah, the trans inclusive special where you say you're a TERF and misgender people 5 times. It's like how is that clear? It's so misleading, or it's so confusing. Because it's like, how do you reconcile these comments? If you wanted to be trans inclusive, you clearly wouldn't say some of these things. But at the same time, if he wasn't empathetic to trans people, I also don't think that he would end the special the way that he did. Not the exact end, but like the Daphne story and some of the stuff surrounding that. He did seem to care about Daphne. So I don't think, I don't know. Hopefully that clears it up. It's hard to know.
Yeah, I mean, it was an analogy that we spoke about as well. A lot of people, I do believe that he cared about Daphne. I also partially find the story and the way that it was used as a partial obfuscation of any type of idea that he could be transphobic. Because I really, really enjoyed this. I really loved this one trans person. But we didn't appreciate as a channel the way that he's like, I believe you because you didn't come at me, calling me a transphobe. You didn't come at me trying to talk about pronouns. So I believe you. I don't understand you, but I believe you. And my response to that was, if I were trying to explain to somebody what the Black experience was, and they said, I believe you. I believe your struggle because you didn't try to talk to me about police brutality. And I'm like, things like that. You didn't try to talk to me about discrimination. And it's like, no, you can't really have a conversation with a trans person entirely understanding, or believing, empathizing with your experience if you can only empathize and believe their experience with the exclusion of very fundamental components of the experience. kind
Yeah.
of seems strange to me that like it was Daphne was a very good trans. Daphne was able to not talk about a lot of very key elements. Daphne found a lot of my jokes that most people found to be transphobic to be hilarious. And it's like, is that your criteria of what it takes for you to care about Daphne? Is
It's
Daphne?
also,
Yeah.
yeah, also for chat, it's a very weird standard because if you don't pay attention to stand up comedians are unbelievably brutal to each other. I mean, like if you hear stories about stand up comedians talking to each other when other people aren't around, I mean, they're literally trying to find the most disgusting and brutal things they could possibly say to each other, and that's like the entire conversation is that this is just what they do. So it's very odd to be like, oh, well, Daphne was fine with it. Well, it's like, well, yeah, stand-up comedians are fine with literally anything. I mean, that's the whole game. But you don't apply that to everybody else, right? Like, um, you hear stories about Patrice and like the cellar and talking to people. It's like here's a really funny example. At one point, Jim Norton had just finished he had just finished a comedy special and he wanted to share it with people. And he came over and he's like, "Hey, anybody want to listen to my record?" And Patrice dropped it on the ground, crushed it in half, and poured a drink on it. It's just incredibly funny, but you wouldn't expect that you should be able to do that to like your friend or a normal person. It's only something that's tolerated in this very specific context.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that Daphne was fine with his jokes really doesn't mean anything about anyone else that isn't a stand-up comedian. Um, it's a very context specific thing, and yeah, it is a very much like I have a black friend argument. It's like, oh yeah, well I did all these offensive things, but I have a black friend. I mean, there, yeah, that definitely did kind of ring to me as part of the motivation for including that, but I don't think that was the entire motivation. I mean, he does seem to have cared about Daphne.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I would say that I think that they did care about Daphne. I just think that like really using it to say like um, you know, Daphne wasn't one of you guys. Daphne was one of me. Or I'm just like, I don't know. Like, no, Daphne was a comedian, not a trans woman. It's like intersectionality exists, yeah? Like it really seems like there's this really weird tendency to make sure that somebody has to be one or the other um at all times when when Dave Chappelle speaking.
yeah,
Um and I guess I really just did I was not a big fan of the closing for Daphne either. What you were saying, like um only a man could have jumped off from a building. And I kind of read that the same way as, yeah, like Daryl Davis goes and reforms like a KKK member. They put away the robe and everything. But Daryl Davis dies of heart disease, and the last thing that the KKK member says about Daryl Davis is, them N words love fried chicken. What can I say, yee brother? And it's like, okay, that's to me. I just
yeah.
see it as like you've absolutely negated any type of progress that it seems like you've made over the course of your story. Yeah.
I also think it's only funny if you're. I mean, maybe there's a way to make a comment like that funny if you're making some sort of a really nuanced understanding of like gender and sex or whatever, but he's just not, at all. So, I mean, the punchline of the joke is basically, well, I mean, Daphne was a man. It's like, well, bro, like that's not funny. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess the one other question somebody asked for you that I probably will not end up uploading in the segment if I put it on YouTube, is do you think that Destiny is unironically evil, specifically in light of his recent Twitter drama?
Destiny is definitely kind of a dick on Twitter. What exactly did he do? He like retweeted a thing about Doe or something like that.
Yes, well, yes, yeah, the Doe related stuff. Yeah. Well, more specifically, this specific thread someone made, I'll send it to you.
Okay. So my general impression before whatever happened recently is that like he is clearly a dick on Twitter. I don't think it reaches the level of like calling for political violence or something like that, but he's obviously an asshole. Yeah, these are all really douchebag comments.
I guess
I
the
don't.
question would be like, would you say that it's equivalent or less than or equal to or greater than your opinions about Vaush not being the best person?
Like I said, it doesn't. So like that doesn't rise to the level of the worst Vaush stuff, which is like calling on his audience to go harass the cop was like particularly disgusting.
I haven't seen the video because I I do that Vaush stand thing where I don't watch
Yeah,
things about it.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Vaush has done some pretty bad stuff. It's generally speaking, most of it is a while ago, 6 months to a year ago at least. So I do think he'll get better. But yeah, the stuff Destiny's done, I don't think it rises to the same level. And it's funny, people always ask me this, but I don't really have much of an opinion on Destiny. On stream, I think that his behavior has mostly been like considerably better than Vosh's, but on Twitter, he's kind of a fucking asshole. And I don't know exactly why. It seems to be partially just that he's frustrated, which I can understand. That doesn't justify things, but at least it gives you some insight into why these things are happening. But I think it's also partially farming for engagement, which is kind of gross. Like some of the grossest stuff he does is like I've seen him retweet people or quote tweet people that are like have 10 followers and didn't say anything to him, and it's like that's pretty fucked up, dude. Like don't do that. So I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say the exact level of like harm or badness, but yeah, Destiny definitely is kind of cringe on Twitter.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I wasn't expecting a certain answer, neither do I want you to give me a particular answer. It's just a question that someone had.
Yeah.
So I already gave you a exclamation point, so that you could like people can have access to your Twitter and your YouTube. Is there anything else that I'm missing? I see, like, I guess you've been able to see the chat, so I guess you have a Twitch account, but I don't know if you stream at all, so I'm not sure.
No, I don't stream. I wasn't looking at chat. Hold on.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, just Twitter and YouTube is cool.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, thank you overall for coming on today. I'm trying to work more on my collaboration skills. But yeah, overall it was great to have you on. And if you ever I guess want to enter the debate bro scene, and or I guess just want to come on somewhere, feel free to hit me up whenever. And thanks for joining our server.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, I mean, just message people. You'll get much better responses. Not just you, but to chat. Like, people are surprised by this, but if you just send professors emails, they like respond about half the time. So, you just talk to people. They very often respond. It's very effective. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. And yeah, thank you once again. And have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks.
Later.
Bye. Yeet. Okay, Julio. So somebody had a question for me. And the question is, for me, or question for me. Wow, I'm very good at speaking. Considering the TERF ideology is directed and harmful slash hateful to trans people, do you think that their ideology is comparable to that of the KKK? I would say it's comparable, but not directly comparable. So it's not an exact equivalent, but I would say it would be one of those things if we're dealing with a triangle, and I see another triangle that has the same exact angles, it would be similar in that sense, but it's not congruent. I can't believe I made that as my reference. I hate myself. Hello. So the reason why I would say it is comparable to that of the KKK is because it is a group of people that are in a position of power over another group of people, basically espousing negative and hateful things about a group of people, and trying to directly affect no, excuse me, the More Perfect Union. No, it's not. Just because it has the same angles doesn't mean that it has the same side length. So they are similar, but they aren't congruent. Yeah. So it's not always necessary that something, yeah, exactly. I cannot believe that you are trying to, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I would say it's comparable because they do not like trans people, and they are effectively trying to pass legislation and which can slow down the progress of these groups of people, as well as there is the situation of TERFs can infiltrate government and dog whistle, same way as other groups of people have, or other KKK members have done throughout history. But I would say that they are only similar and not congruent because, as Duck Slime has said, there's not, callings for direct violence. There's hasn't been any situation in which TERFs go and burn the female sex symbol on trans people's yards. There aren't any lynchings. They don't directly, I don't, as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, there isn't a call for violence in a physical sense, though of course, I would say that opposing someone's right to use a bathroom feels quite violent to me. And it's not nice, is what I would say. Yeah. So I would say that they're only similar. I think it's also the whole thing that kind of puts it off as also not being as well comparable, is the situation with the fact that TERFs a lot of times will just absolutely deny the validity of trans men. So, they'll more see them as like fallen lesbians as opposed to trans men. And even if this infantilization is harmful, it's not similar in the way that, like, no matter what, across the board, KKK members do not like any type of black person, not black women, not black men. Obviously there's a higher tendency to murder the black men than black women, but I would say that that's, I guess, it's an equal hatred for all flavors of black, whereas TERFs don't have an equal hatred for all flavors of trans. So yeah.